Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Kayla and I release new videos every Monday about all things BPD. So if that sounds good to you, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below as well as the bell notification up top. Now today we're going to be talking about something that is really scary and I have been getting a lot of questions about how to do this specifically, and that is how and when to tell someone that you have BPD. I know that BPD has a really negative stigma to it, and so I can understand that when we get diagnosed with this, then it becomes scary and difficult to know when is the appropriate moment to tell someone that we have this, and then how do we do it. So obviously the first thing that I want to address is that this is very person specific. There is no right or wrong answer. This is really going to depend on you, how you are as a person, your level of comfort with disclosing this type of information. But for the context of today, I'm going to be addressing it in a more relationship context, just because this is something that comes up more frequently. We often think about the stigma of people who have BPD in relationships specifically. Oh, well, can they be good partners? Can they have healthy relationships, etc., 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 right? When you Google it, it's always things like, you're never going to be able to have a long-lasting relationship when you have BPD, and you're never going to be able to find love. You're always going to have shit relationships. Whatever it may be, all this information that we see out there makes it that much more scary to then disclose this information when we're entering a new romantic relationship. For me personally, I got diagnosed while I was already in a relationship. We had been together for almost a year at that point, and so the process of discovering just kind of happened together. It was not something that I needed to necessarily disclose because I was very open and transparent with the thoughts that maybe I had this thing, going through the therapeutic process of getting diagnosed. I know, however, that this is not the case for everyone. I know that there might be some of you who are currently in a relationship and you think that you have this, you actually go get diagnosed, but you hide this from your partner. That is up to your discretion. I just know that personally for me, that was not the case. But let's take, for example, that you are single and you're entering a new relationship. Then the question is, well, when is the right moment to tell someone? Personally, and I want to stress the fact that this is my personal opinion, I do not think that you need to disclose this on the first date. Just hear me out for a second, okay? There's pros and cons to doing this. Sometimes when we go on a first date with someone, it doesn't actually end up going anywhere. And so if disclosing your diagnosis is something that is very anxiety inducing, very stressful, and even triggering to some extent, then disclosing this on a first date that might not actually lead to anything might not be the best strategy. And so I would say that it's okay not to say anything on the first date, but also waiting too long is also not ideal, because the longer that we wait, the harder it is for us to say something. And then we're also leaving out something that's a big part of ourselves that our partner, the person that we're seeing, is entitled to know. Now, there's also pros of disclosing this on the first date, is that we let the person just fully know all this information, take it or leave it with what you want, right? They can make an informed decision to know, okay, this is something that I don't care about, it's fine, or maybe they're not as emotionally intelligent as we would have hoped, and then they don't contact us again. So this question that I get, well, when do I tell someone? How do I say it? It's very context dependent. It's very specific to you. I know that personally, let's say if ever for some reason my current relationship didn't pan out and I had to start dating again, I'm not sure. I think that if I saw potential in the person right away, then I might disclose it on the first date, but it's really hard to tell. And so you just need to trust yourself and trust your gut. Just know that the main thing, though, is that ultimately I do think that our partners deserve to know about our disorders, because if roles were reversed, I would like to know that, for example, if I'm dating someone and they're bipolar and maybe they're not taking their medication consistently and then they have a manic phase and I don't understand what's going on, that's important for me to know. and vice versa. It's important for our partners to understand that maybe they just need to validate us more instead of trying to problem solve, because that's not what we need. So the next part of this question is, how do we go about telling the person? So whether that's our friends, our family members, our partner, that we have BPD. The first thing that's really important is to make sure that you are feeling good. Don't pick a day where you barely slept or you're super hungover. We all know that we have vulnerability factors. PMS, lack of sleep, being hungover because we get depressed from alcohol, not having eaten, being sick. So those are all factors that make us vulnerable to having more volatile moods. Don't pick one of those days. Pick one of the days where you slept a good solid 8 hours, you had a big nice breakfast, you're hydrated, you're feeling good, you've moved your body that day. Pick one of those days, and also make sure that the person that you're disclosing this information is also kind of on the same page. We don't want to be telling someone that when they have a lot of stress going on at work and they are not able to really listen to us. So we want to make sure that it's the right place and the right time. The second thing is to give as much or as little information as you feel comfortable disclosing. At the end of the day, this is your personal story, your personal journey. You by no means owe someone to disclose the full picture the first time you mention it, okay? If there are things that is really triggering to you and you don't feel comfortable sharing those right off the bat, you don't need to. The main thing is that you can disclose that, for example, you could say something along the lines like, you've been going to therapy or you have gone to therapy in the past and you got diagnosed with BPD, something that you're working through, and you can leave it as blanket statement as that, or you can really go into details and detail the different symptoms that you experience, how and why and how long this has been going on. That's up to you. And the last thing, this is a really, really important piece, is to give the person space. We don't want to just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and leave no room for the person, because we need to also be mindful that they might have questions and they might have concerns or inquiries that they need to ask about, and they are entitled, and it's okay for them to want to ask questions. That doesn't mean that you need to answer them. So if they ask you something very specific, you can just say, hey, I'm not comfortable answering that right now. Can we come back to it at another time? That's totally fine. And also, they're allowed to ask you those questions. And so we want to make this a conversation between two people, rather than you just dumping a bunch of information and saying, okay, peace out, right? We're never going to talk about this ever again. So right time, right mood, right place. That's number one. Number two is disclosing as much or as little information as you feel comfortable. And number three is leaving room for the person to ask questions and have space during that conversation. Once again, not you needing to answer everything that they ask you, but just giving them the room to ventilate their feelings about what you have just told them. Now, I know that this is kind of like a weird video in the sense that I'm not really giving you specific information as to when to tell someone, because once again, that's very context dependent. But I do hope that this at least gave you some reassurance that you don't owe someone to disclose your entire life journey right off the bat. Remember that BPD does not define you as a person. You're so much more outside of this. And so yes, this is important to tell our partners, but there's other facets of you that are as interesting, as beautiful. Don't let BPD be this thing that overshadows the rest of you. As always, I'm really curious to know what your experiences were with disclosing your diagnosis to people. Have you told them yet? Have you not? If so, how has that gone down? Let me know in the comments down below. And on that note, I wish you all an awesome week, and I will see you next time for another episode of On the Line.